Good evening. Welcome to Something to Talk About. Happy to have you tonight. It's a beautiful evening, I'm sure, for you, all nestled up in your bed. Tonight, we're going to be talking to Vangie Lujan. She has become really the face of the National Museum, a collection of artifacts and a collection of Guam's religious Catholic history. We're going to talk about some of the dangers of trying to make that happen in Guam and how we can possibly build some bridges to make that happen in Guam. We're Something to Talk About for that. Good evening and welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Patty Arroyo. It is a wonderful evening and I'm so glad that you are here with us because we are here at King's. My friend Vangie Lujan, who's with GWA, has a whole other life that she does aside from the GWA stuff, and you'd be surprised at this stuff. And you'll find that all out coming up in the next half hour or so. Welcome to the program, and thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here and finally have a chance to really talk to you. And
I know, because usually I don't think we ever really sat down and talked. I think that there was one time that I had been judging something and you were on the other end of the table.
Yes,
but other than that, we don't really have a lot of conversation. And I do know that we had a conversation back during the summertime. This was a pretty big upset in the Catholic Church.
Yes.
It was the removal of Monsignor James Beneventi from the Agana Cathedral Basilica, who was instrumental in launching a lot of things to develop the Archdiocese. And one of the beloved projects, I mean, it had many, but one of the beloved projects, you actually had I mentioned it on the radio, that you had a very emotional attachment to.
Yes.
And I apologize, I might have caught you at a very sensitive time when I called you, but you were just about to launch. It was within hours or days, right?
The official launch date was August 5th. That would be Tuesday, and I spoke to you Monday.
Yeah.
But we had our opening and closing date August 3rd, which was a Sunday.
It was the National Museum.
Right? Yes. Yeah. It was the beginning of how we were going to launch into that part of our ministry of teaching people or of engaging people through the history of Guam's church. And so that was sort of stopped now.
So tell me about that. The concept of telling the story through the church. You don't get that everywhere. And Guam is not necessarily unique that way, but in the United States, you don't get that cultural lesson, especially a religious cultural lesson that is dominantly Catholic.
We're very lucky that way. We have a small community and you can do so many things here. I'm not even in museum or curation or any of those things. I was a grant writer for a long time, and I just happened to be a parishioner of Agana, and I sing for the 730 choir and the Emmaus choir, and my sons are altar servers, and I was waiting for them because they were taking a long time to get out of the convento area or the sacristy area, and Monsignor James happened to pass by and he said,
never stand idly, by the way, around Father James, because he will find something for you to do.
Exactly. And, divine intervention, right? And he said, hey, can you write some grants for me? And I said, sure, no problem. What's it for? The museum. And I'm thinking, okay, I guess so. But I'm not, I have friends. I can figure out what we're going to do. What are we going to do? And he's like, oh, and we just started that conversation. That conversation probably started July of 2013. Just July of 2013, and then I had to leave. But certain things were happening and things were getting together that I never actually did any work. I sort of did some groundwork for it until January of 2014, just this year, where he wanted to have a fundraiser to bring some funds to start up the museum.
I remember that. Yeah.
And that was going to be in March, and I thought, darn it, I better hurry up and get my act together here. So I got a few people together, and we made the museum the first time open as a way. So I learned so much. Monica Guzman and Ron Castro, Peter Onodera, Tom Kanata, they all volunteered to help me. And then we had some other people that I knew that were interested. I had a couple of coworkers that were also interested in helping. And then they advised me to talk to Father Fran Hazel and
oh gosh, another great historian in this region.
Exactly, and Dave Atienza, who's with the University of Guam. And I did that before Father Fran had left. And so they had already started, I think they kind of started like 2 years before that, coming up with the structure of the story of what the museum was going to be about. And so we had a museum, I forget when, like 2005, that was on the first floor where the gift shop is now.
Yeah.
And so all the stuff were in boxes up on the third floor. So sometime in
It's a little known fact
Yes.
that the third floor of the Agana Cathedral Basilica, above the Santa Maria in Camelin's niche,
Yes.
there is a third floor.
Yes.
Not everybody gets to go
No.
up there, but that's a pretty impressive area.
Yes.
You know, and I remember it from other people who had had a hand in the museum in the early days.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
a lot of valuable things
Yeah.
in there, a lot of
Treasures.
completely like, wow, what is this? Records of stuff, letters from people. The entire Archbishop Flores' life is depicted in pictures and his personal photo albums and
Wow.
just things, just a lot of things upstairs. And so I went up there and did an inventory with a couple of people, and then we did our best to open something in March. And so that was the first time. It was an opening to show people what it was like. And so then a little before that, maybe in January, Joanne Camacho, who I know from work, and just also she's my husband's cousin, I was asking her if DFS can loan us or not loan us, can they donate shelves and display cases? And she said, sure. Well, she introduced us to James Santos, who is the senior manager for visual merchandising for the Pacific region. And he said, he came to the site and he's like, okay, this is a pretty impressive place. What are you guys doing with it? And we were telling him, we're going to open a museum. He's like, okay, cool. I'm busy right now, but I'll help you. And then he wasn't able to help us for the March opening. But 2 weeks after that fundraiser, he came in and he said, okay, this doesn't work here, and let's go do I'll help you really. This is the time now. Let me really help you. And so, like, by April, the whole
Wow.
exhibit got changed over.
Yeah.
We changed the walls. He brought in things that they needed. He brought in his entire staff. He said, we want to do something that reflects our community. We want to be able to share with the community. It's our responsibility to the community. And he's Catholic too, and he said, I want to do this. And let me bring in the resources that I have. And so we then I want to say, and it's whenever you can do it. So from April, but I'm quite surprised by the end of June, the beginning of July, it was set. It only took 3 months of his time.
Wow.
It's when you see the pictures, and I hopefully people will get to see that.
Yeah, we'll be able to show them. All of these artifacts and all these collections, are they owned by the Archdiocese of Agana?
In the exhibit that was shown in August and in March, we borrowed a lot of things with Monsignor Oscar Calvo's family. They loaned us a big part of his collection. First Lady Jerry Gutierrez, she brought in her family collection. Because one of the things that I really wanted to do was the museum is a living place where people learn about each other and learn about our faith.
Right.
But it's through the people and their traditional practices of the baptismals, their funerals, their weddings, and that whole connection between what happens with our religious experiences and our cultural experiences. So there's a section for families. So we had a whole list of people. And I have to also not forget to say that Monsignor created a fundraising committee that was part of our museum committee. And it's staffed with the bigwigs. It was Mrs. Jerry Gutierrez, Mrs. Charo Calvo, and Mrs. Jenny Shimizu. And they really were the ones who really forced us to move towards having the fundraiser, so it sort of made the ball moving. And so when we would talk about what the content of the museum would be, they provided all the names of the families we should be contacting. So we'll start with the families in Agana, and then we'll spread out. Because one of the things that I found is that whenever you go to a funeral, the thing people really are interested in looking at is your family pictures.
Yeah.
And so
because 9 times out of 10 you're going to find somebody in there that you know. There's going to be some kind of relation.
Exactly.
Let's fast forward. Let's fast forward to the crux of the issue. The crux of the issue is you've got an invaluable collection.
Yes.
And invaluable artifacts and items from our Catholic history.
Yes.
And they are now being housed where, and I was talking about this a lot on the radio. My grandmother was buried, and it was not a pleasant experience.
I know.
For obvious reasons, but the accommodations were pretty
It's
poor.
hot.
It's very hot. And so how does that affect?
So when on August 3rd, when we closed the museum and people were taking their things out, it was being dismantled, but not the walls or anything. All the things that belonged to the church itself, the diocese, were left. And we didn't box anything up because we felt that this was going to be a gift to the new administration and somebody, that we didn't want them to have to start from the beginning. So really, there were some photos were taken off the walls. The Monsignor Calvo collection was a big part of it.
Taken off the walls by whom?
None of the pictures. We left all the things on the
see.
walls.
Okay.
Everything. We didn't take apart the displays. Everything is.
You left
indicated.
everything intact.
Yes,
Okay.
because this is our child.
Right.
You don't want. You want
But
to be.
so
able
the
to give
museum
it.
had more of a softer opening than what something you had planned originally.
So
Yeah.
the original plan was in July. We had an opening for tour guides, GVB, and because they were going to help us to create the buzz for the tourism community, and some business people to say, here's what we have as a product that we would like to share with the community and with tourists that come here. Is this something that you could do as a way to fund the operations of the museum? It was hugely successful. They were shocked at how beautiful it was and how
Yeah, I'm not
a
surprised.
treasure
Yeah.
that we have here
Yeah.
in Agana. And because they bring their tourists already to Agana, it wasn't
Yeah.
a big stretch for
I'm
them
not
to do
surprised,
the
and
tour.
it certainly was. It would have been certainly a potential for a stream of revenue that was much needed. We're going to take a quick break
Yes.
here, and when we come back, there are many things that Vanjie does in addition to what it is that we're talking about, but there is a lot of concern. There's stuff that's happening in our Catholic Church, and that deeply affects what's happening with the National Museum of the Agana Cathedral Basilica. We're something to talk about. Come back. Our guest is Vanjie.
Dulce Nombre de Maria, it's right there. We have a kneeler, so
Oh, okay, go. Wow.
I never got to go, right?
Welcome back to Something to Talk About. Tonight we are talking about the National Museum of the Dulce Nombre de Maria Agana Cathedral Basilica. Vanjie Lujan is our guest tonight. You're not the curator, and there is no way that you were involved in any way in the museum as a professional.
No,
you were a volunteer of
absolutely.
the church. There's a lot.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of people who are willing to make this happen. But before we keep talking, we have a choice here. Because King's is really generous about, feeding us. There is fruit or fries. I'm going with fries.
Let's go with the fries.
Okay, good. I'm
Absolutely.
going to do the. Thank you for saying fries.
Absolutely.
Because you're a tiny girl. You look like you just eat fruit.
Oh gosh.
So, a girl like me, I would go, I'll go fruit for the public. But I
wearing a
really want to
very-
go fries.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
All
let's
right.
put some
you want
Tabasco.
Tabasco?
Is that okay?
No. You know what? I'm going to make my own little
Okay,
nest
thanks.
of, because we
Yeah.
have to double dip and everything. But
The best part of your show is when people get to eat.
oh, see,
They relax and then they talk freely.
well, I'm all about the relaxing. Tell me, I'll wait till you chew. But tell me,
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Is there a need to be concerned about what is happening? We are now, I think, in the middle of maybe not an identity crisis. People might, from the outside, look at us and think that it's an identity crisis. I don't think it is. I think that there are people who are very clear on their convictions.
Yes.
And you have the neo-catechumenal way, and then not.
Right.
And I call them the other Catholics.
Right.
I don't have an opinion either way, but I do have a concern about the rift that it has created, and it has created also and generated a lot of displeasure and a lot of dislike.
Yes.
And it's ugly. It's very ugly. It's unprecedented is in my life.
I've had strange experiences where people are sort of like gauging which one are you? Are you a neo or not a neo?
Oh.
That kind of thing, and then our conversation changes because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Or are you against the Archbishop or not
Oh,
against the
so
Archbishop?
okay.
So it becomes one of those
State
kinds of things.
state your side kind of thing.
Yeah, and
Oh,
then your
yeah, I like
conversation
that.
changes,
I
and,
like
and it's
that.
unfortunate because that's not the way that we were brought up, or
Right.
that's not our culture. And
Right.
so it becomes a big deal.
So is this a pawn? Is the museum a pawn? Would you call it that, or is it a victim of the crossfire?
I think it's a victim of the crossfire. I know at the time that right at the closing of the museum in August, I felt that it was really, this is just like a collateral damage of what is going on. And I still think
This is a dangerous collateral damage. Can you pick something else? You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
Because
now I really feel like it could be the bridge. If people are willing to, I think people want to talk about all kinds of things about how
it's
they're
neutral
feeling.
territory. Everybody has an interest in preserving the traditions. Or I'm understand, or I'm hearing that people say that there is necessarily a pursuit to negate what the original traditions are, values that we have had over the years, in order to create an entire different concept or outlook. Have you heard that?
I've heard it, but I've not
I
experienced
don't believe
that.
it. I don't know if I believe it.
I just feel that when you hear about the beauty of Guam's development over the centuries, it is a beautiful story that even if it's a way to bring people back into the church. I had a very wonderful experience with David Atienza and with Father Fran Hazel when they first were explaining the church of Guam,
right,
and how rich it is, right, and how old it's the oldest church. It's the oldest church in all of the Pacific, earlier than Cook Islands or Fiji or even Hawaii. The cathedral itself is the first cathedral in all of the Pacific. It had the first metal dome.
So there's more of a sense of urgency here.
I
think
so.
there's more of a sense of urgency.
The story has to be told.
Okay,
and
so
why
how do we do this? If our artifacts are in danger of being completely destroyed, completely wiped out because of the elements, what is the best way to lay down that first brick for that bridge that you're talking about? How can you, as a Catholic mother, with your raising children in the church, your sons are altar servers?
Yes, I think that this is one of them, is to get the word out. I think people might get a little bit distaste by talking about all these issues that are happening in the church.
Well, it's uncomfortable.
Very much so.
And it makes us kind of look weak. I think that people think that in the eyes of other denominations, the Catholic Church is breachable.
Yes.
And I'm uneasy with that. So I believe, and I have always believed, that this issue needs a woman's touch.
I think
it needs some female diplomacy.
That's what I think so too. That's one of the things that I feel about me being vocal about the museum. The museum, people, it's tangible, it's touchable, and it's something that our culture is dependent on, our traditions are. So you don't need to even talk about religion as much as you can even talk about, well, this is a gift. And it is so, we can't squander this opportunity. We cannot squander all of these things.
Absolutely. And as an attraction of Guam, we have tourists coming down there all the time. If we went to a foreign country and visited another religion, you're always interested in what people believe, what they praise, and the story behind these religions.
One of the stories about, one of the way that the story of the museum, let me say that better, is that culture and religion were blended as a way. So in the museum, we have the we have all of the prehistoric, pre-contact period type things that you would see if the Guam Museum was open. It was a mixture of what you would see out in the community. It's not strictly about priests and bishops and their history. It was about the people. The prominent people of the town at the time, the structure of a ganya. Where the bridges were. So it was more about Guam, not just from a religious point of view.
Well, I think a revolution is due. And I maybe you can start it. I believe a revolution is due. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's time to take something back. It is time to stop the nonsense. There's a lot of back and forth. I'm not loving the language right now. I don't like the undertone of the hate. I'm not interested in that. And I think that you have a very interesting idea, and we'll talk about it right here as long as we're talking about it. You are on a movement to bring back. You go ahead and say it, because that's your idea. I like that.
So I love, one of the things I think that Monsignor James brings to the table is that he is a mover and shaker and make things happen kind of guy, right?
Right. Pass the salt. Sorry.
More than other people that I've seen, or not because of just his, he's take charge, but also he was brought up to make sure that things, I mean, the projects.
That's the way he is. That's just
okay. And people gravitate towards him.
Right.
And so when he brought this to me, I said, okay, but after we're done with the museum, can we start the family that prays together, stays together,
my gosh.
family rosary hour?
Can you believe that? And
God, I grew up on that.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a treat to see your classmates and your families and people.
That's so refreshing to hear, because that's a punchline.
Yes.
That's a punchline. There's a whole generation of people who never even knew that existed. That was a formidable piece
it was on Sunday night
of the media of the time. Yeah.
And my family got together, and we turned on the TV and we watched the family rosary hour, and we prayed the rosary together as a family. And so I really feel that, regardless of this, because this was a discussion I had with him last year.
I think we might be able to do something.
I hope so.
But I agree. I agree. That's a great idea. Sometimes you just got to go back to the simpler things in life and the origins.
It allows people to, in the technology and in the world that we live in, which is all visual, to be able to gravitate towards something that will then really allow you to take the time out to do this.
Yeah.
And so that was going to be my next project after this project the museum project was going to be taking
That's
over
very
and
cool.
stuff like that.
I like that project.
Yeah.
That's good.
One of the nice things about the museum that I know that people didn't get is that there were places and niches in the museum where you can take the time to pray. The Santa Maria in Cumberland, the statue that we use, not during the procession, but during the novenas, that particular statue was used. There's a kneeler in front of it. It's in a little quiet niche next to where San Vittoris was. So there, the display for the exhibit for the Pope is there too, and that also had a kind of a quiet place for you to be able to reflect and to pray. And so I had because the Pope is now a saint, all of those things there. He has his cassock or his vestments.
Yeah.
He had his the podium that was used during the mass.
Yeah.
And then there's photos of him kissing the ground that when he arrived on Guam.
This is some powerful stuff. Very powerful stuff.
Well, and you just feel the spirituality when you walk in there.
Well, I tell you what, there's got to be a whole lot of praying going on to try to change the face of things that are happening. Yeah. And you call on me whenever that happens. I know that you have been working really hard to make some good things happen. And I'm a firm believer that I think a woman's touch.
Absolutely.
You boys stop fighting with each other. That's how you have to do it.
I know.
You boys stop fighting with each other.
We need to get some of those nuns in
We need to get some of those ladies with that strong finger, and they'll tell you boys what to do. All right.
Absolutely.
Vanjie Lujan, thanks, my friend.
Thank
it's very
you
nice
so
to have
much.
you.
It's so good
I
to
hope
be
you
here.
enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for joining us tonight from Kings into Mooning. We're something to talk about. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. All right, fries around.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, I'll just do the other stuff, right?